right, 144. We're going to start by talking some Schiff. You had something to say about Adam Schiff.
All right, well, the word this week is that a meeting was held with the Intelligence Committee of the House where our intelligence agencies, which are, in my opinion, completely unreliable and biased.
Because you've been told.
No, because the IG report, the Inspector General report, said that the FBI knew in 2017 that Trump had not colluded with Russia, but then they appointed a special prosecutor who spent 2 years persecuting Trump and coming up with nothing at the end of it. That's why I think our intelligence agencies are crap. But anyway, the scuttlebutt from this secret meeting is Devin Nunes. Okay, Schiff says that during the meeting they were informed that the Russians were going to interfere with our elections, and Schiff had to warn the nation of this rising danger. And Devin Nunes announced at the same time that there's no validity in that, and that why is this being leaked at all, and you can't trust these people, and what is Schiff trying to do? He's also suing the Washington Post, is Devin Nunes.
He's also suing
for lying about it.
He's also suing an imaginary cow. He sues a lot of people.
Well, let me put it to you this way. The Washington Post says that Devin Nunes immediately left the meeting and went to the White House to coordinate strategy. And Nunes said there are witnesses that he can prove his whereabouts, and that the Washington Post needs to learn to stop lying. Now, that's all the background for what I'm going to say, which is I think unusually bright for me and usually intelligent. This for a long time now, people have been saying maybe the Russians will interfere with our election, maybe they won't. How much are they interfering? Are they using social media? What are they doing? And it occurred to me, I feel really good about this. You've got each side spending, the Democrats and the Republicans spending over $1 billion to influence the American voter. Over $1 billion, maybe $2 billion each. And you're telling me that the Russians, who have an economy the size of Italy, well, I believe they have an economy the size of Texas, are going to spend what? $10 million on Facebook ads and somehow change the election? In other words, I started to think about it. I thought, well, okay, so they're going to interfere with the election. What exactly are they going to do that the Democrats and the Republicans aren't going to do 85,000 times worse or with more vigor? How many votes can they actually change?
We've seen their playbook from 2016. And who was the Greek guy who said, give me a place there? Was it Archimedes? Give me a place to stand and I can move the earth?
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Archimedes in Syracuse.
Yeah.
Who?
And the Russians.
Archimedes was famous for creating levers. That was a big thing. He was a brilliant Greek geometrist, and he could create these long levers.
He said, basically what he was saying is the earth weighs a lot, but if you had a long enough lever, even just one guy could move it. If he had so.
Now that may not be, well, it's an educational show, but the reason that that's significant is we're not just sitting here talking about levers. What happened was the Roman fleet attacked Syracuse, his city, and it was a port city, and Archimedes developed these levers that the Syracusans put out into the ocean, and they lifted up the Roman ships and tipped them over. And in that way, he was able to thwart the Romans until he was eventually betrayed by his own people.
But sweet. Also, he came up with Archimedes' screw, which is not a sex thing. It's a screw-shaped deal that pumps water from a low height to a high. It's cool as hell.
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
And also, he the king suspected somebody was stealing, was the guy making his crowns or whatever, was embezzling, was stealing gold from the process. And Archimedes, known to be smart, he put him on the case. And Archimedes was having a bath at the communal baths, and he realized how to catch the guy and ran out into the streets shouting "Eureka!" naked, because he came up with the deal. And he came up with a way to measure the density of the crown. So he did a lot of
stuff. You know
stuff.
how he did that?
Yeah.
He put the crown in water.
Yeah.
And he measured the amount of water that was displaced by the crown.
Yeah.
So that every time anything was taken out of the crown, he could see the water level rise or lower.
Not exactly.
No,
the deal is...
I'm guessing that.
No. The deal is that you would take known gold.
Yeah, just a definite quantity. Yeah.
And so you take the crown, you mess with the gold that you know is pure gold until they displace the same amount of water.
Okay.
And then, so then you have a volume measure basically of each thing, and then you weigh each thing. And if the crown is pure gold, they should weigh the same. But if you've been replacing the gold in the crown with crap, lead or whatever,
you have a known quantity.
Yeah.
Known quantity, guys. That's the word.
So anyway, but the important part is running down the street naked, doing signs.
Is that where Eureka comes from?
Would,
the Eureka, is that where it comes from that?
I think so.
But running down the street naked in ancient Greece was not that big a deal.
No, I mean they did the Olympics naked.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Now, why is Adam Schiff dead right about this? We know their MO. The Russians.
Well, no, the deal. During 2016 and 2017, there was a website called Tennessee GOP, and it was, I assume, the website of the Tennessee Republican Party, and they would tweet stuff that was so scurrilous and just so fucking, and I angrily type, "Fuck you," just hated them. They were Russians. They weren't from Tennessee.
Okay.
There's this building in St. Petersburg, Russia, that's the home of these guys. It's like, I think it's probably like, I worked for 12 years writing for a talk show, a late night talk show. And it's all day, you and your co-worker buddies and buddiettes are trying to come up with funny shit. It's a great job, but I mean, I feel like this building is full of the same kind of people who spend all day like exercising ingenuity to come up with shit that will piss off people, make people more divided, that just nudge America, just make America more pissed off and chaotic.
You know what? You don't even, just go on Facebook.
Yeah.
Just put a picture of Trump or Bernie Sanders on your page on Facebook, and you'll get more reaction than the Russians were able to do with their building.
Yeah, but they add to it. They throw fucking sulfur in the water.
I think it's wrong, but to me, the American people are 330 million strong doing this. So I just don't see a couple hundred Russians in a building doing any more than the Sanders campaign with hundreds of millions of dollars.
I know that the shit that,
And by the way, it turns out that Trump has 500,000 workers, 500,000 people working for free to get Trump elected.
Okay.
Do you think that's going to be overcome by 300 Russians in a building with Facebook and YouTube?
Yeah, because everybody working for Trump, 95% they want to get Trump elected, and they want to celebrate Trump, and 5% they want to stick it to people who don't like Trump. Same on the other side. But the Russians, 100% just want to piss people off and make people confused and make people, maybe make people so confused and pissed off they don't even vote, and they like sowing discontent. And most of, like, you and I have been doing this show we hate each other's politics. We've been doing this show for 3 years. And we yell at each other, but we also like trying to find common ground sometimes. And we're still friends after all of this.
Yeah, amazing. But I have to say, I think the reason for that is because we're men. I think if we were women, we would have stopped speaking to each other. That bona fide sexism, there you go. Misogyny, yeah, it's true. But think about it in your own lives. Do you know of any two women that could have argued for 3 years and remained friends?
I don't know. Carol still follows people on Facebook who are super Trumpy.
Okay.
I mean, she's not happy about it, but she hasn't blocked them.
All right, fair enough. Wait, did you have more to say? Because I wanted to say something more
I had something superficial to say.
The Russians.
Okay,
go ahead.
The Schiff has been criticized by Trump for having a pencil neck. And just the deal is that it's better to have a pencil neck than have a vagina neck, which Trump has. His neck gathers in the front and looks like labia.
Okay. What I was going to say about the Russians is something actually deadly serious. And that is, if all of you should see the lectures of Yuri Bezmezov, who was a former KGB, who defected. And we don't have to worry about, $4 million being spent on disinformation on Facebook and YouTube from the Russians. What the KGB actually does and did is manage to make 9/10 of the college professors in the United States communists, so that the whole next generation of young Americans are being influenced by socialist theory. They managed to take over newspapers with communist dupes. There are people that are firmly believing in communism at various levels of our government. FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Truman had at least a dozen communist spies that were outed and actually prosecuted. So, the Russians have already infiltrated our society in ways that really count. We don't have to worry about election interference. And one of my best examples of this is that it would have been unthinkable for a man like Bernie Sanders to get more than 2% in an American election. Today, he's the undisputed leader of the Democrat Party.
Wait, I'll dispute that.
And that would have been unthinkable. And it is entirely because I believe the Russians have been working on young Americans for 70 years, and it's finally paying off. They've finally got enough people to believe in socialism that it's okay to vote for Sanders.
Oh, okay. So a lot of this is just going to come straight off the top of my head. But for people who you consider socialists and communists, we have more awesome shit now than we've ever had before. If we're communists with 50, 60-inch flat screens, with fucking supercomputers in the palms of our hands, with fucking 300 channels. We've got great shit. We like our shit. And liking material goods. There's nothing more capitalistic than liking your shit.
Okay. Well, things that Sanders wants to do is he wants to have a complete forgiveness on student debt. free socialist medicine where there's virtually no private medicine at all. He wants to basically ruin our relationship supporting Israel. He will obviously be reducing the military. He wants the government to start placing chosen representatives of the workers on the boards of all the corporations as decision makers. Just weird, crazy
Well, can we
communist
talk about
ideas.
that last one? Because in the past, I could make a pretty good case that the CEOs of corporations 80 years ago were more altruistic than the CEOs of corporations today, where shareholder value is king, and the ratio of CEO salaries to average worker salaries has increased like tenfold. From in the 40s, CEOs were making 30 times the average worker in salary, and now it's 300 times.
Okay, but it's not the government's business unless you're a communist to rectify that
You
situation.
can't talk. You talked about how that socialism is.
Well, no, wait, you talked right over what I said.
All right, go ahead.
Do you understand what I just said?
That he wants to do all this socialism.
No, I'm saying if the United States government steps in and says, you, corporation, are going to do what we say, and you're going to promote who we choose onto your board because we think your pay rates are inequitable, then that's communism, Rick.
Well,
It's a dictatorship. I don't want to live
all right.
in it.
Well, if they're doing that, then that's.
But that's what he wants to do. That's the only way to solve it.
What's the matter with having somebody who works at the company on the board of the company?
There's nothing the matter if the company decides that that's what they want to do, but it's not Bernie Sanders' decision. That's the whole problem with communism.
I don't think
none of the goals are ever bad. It's just you don't want the government to tell you to do things. That's how they ruin things.
Among the things that you mentioned, the thing that I thought that I found the least objectionable, I guess, would be that what's the matter with requiring companies to have somebody who works at the company?
Nothing. There's nothing wrong with it except that it's not the government's decision. None of the things that. All right, let's just get to the basics of what Sanders wants to do.
You just said a bunch. I know that he's interested in the socialist.
No, I was going to bring it together, but if you would like to say something before.
Yeah,
I
well,
say
just
that.
like yesterday at the kitchen table, Carol's like, "I'm going to start taking a pension in May," and it's like, you've got a pension. And she's like, "How come most people don't have pensions? How come most people don't belong to unions anymore? What the hell happened?" And the first thing I said was, well, we're not a manufacturing nation so much anymore. We're a service. But I don't really know all the causes that we don't have, that unions have declined precipitously. But getting a pension and being in a union, and you benefit, your dad was in a union, and you get residual checks because your dad was in a union. And
I get about $400 a year, guys.
Yeah, well, you got fucked over. We'll talk about that later. But
No, we won't. But go ahead.
No, I'm going to talk about cheating with the Houston Astros and
All
stuff.
right.
But you can't. I don't think you can talk about capitalism without talking about the opposite of capitalism, which is socialism or communism, right? Pretty much.
Finish what you're going to say.
Okay, so I would say that you could put every little economic event in the life of a person or in the life of a nation or a corporation or the government on a continuum that goes from communism at one end and capitalism at the other end. And so every policy decision and every personal choice falls somewhere. You pay taxes and it goes to cops and it goes to roads and it goes to the fire department.
Everyone knows all
All
this.
right, but anyway, it's not. it's not the fucking end of the world to have socialist concepts at least out there.
Okay, what you're saying is socialism. Let me tell you how you've been brainwashed. What socialists like Sanders like to do is, I've heard this argument from maybe 6,000 people. They all say the same thing. Well, the post office is socialism, the cops are socialism, DMV is socialist. No.
The post office isn't socialist. The post office pays its own way.
The most capitalist group in the world can say, look, all of us capitalists, we've decided that we're going to get together to buy tanks for the army, buy airplanes for the army. That's not socialism. They've confused you. This is how they've subtly brainwashed you to thinking, oh, well, I'm already kind of in a mixed economy. And yeah, you are. But that's not the goal of a free people. It turns out that the countries that have the most freedom are the ones that are doing best in the world today. And the ones that try to control their economies through state planners, central planning from the state, those are the ones that are failing.
Okay.
Now let me explain why though, because there's a theoretical thing. This is sort of an intellectual show. So
that's glorified.
All right.
You know.
So there was a study done by economists. I believe Milton Friedman was part of this, and he was a famous conservative economist. And they were trying to analyze what the best way to distribute funds are in a society, what the wisest way. Now, what Bernie Sanders wants to do is he wants everyone in the country to give their money to the government, and then the government will have these geniuses that will sit back and they'll figure out what to do with that money in order to give it back to us fairly. And it turns out that if the government worker, it's not his money, and he's giving it to people he doesn't know, that's the least efficient way of redistributing wealth. And it turns out that the most efficient way, where the wisest decisions are made, is when one person is spending his own money on things for himself, because he will not waste a penny. And that's why communism always fails, and capitalism so far is the best system. Because it's the most, you've got 330 million people deciding what's best for their money. Whereas in communism, you got 6 guys in a room somewhere dividing up all the money, and invariably it just becomes a mess.
Okay, so here's what I want, and I'm not going to get what I want, but I want normal government for the next 40 years. By normal, I mean the kind of, slopping along government of the U.S. from, the 40s through the year 2000. Because government will become, I believe other forces will arise that will supplant government.
Robot girlfriends?
Robot girlfriends, yes. Cory Doctorow type movements and alliances and technologically mediated shit that will kind of do, some of the most important alliances of people over the past several hundred years have been nations. People form nations geographically and based on ethnic stuff and cultural stuff, and and everybody sees themselves, probably most Americans see themselves first as Americans and then as whatever else they are, Catholic, of Lithuanian heritage. Everybody's like America, number one, right? When you think of yourself,
okay,
you're an American.
Right.
And then there's other shit that you are, but the American thing is a big deal. I think over the next 40 years, there will be new ways for people to align themselves people will still think of themselves as Americans or whatever the hell they are. They'll also think of themselves as other things that are, and I think technology's gonna, I say this a bunch, yeah, robot girlfriends, it's gonna change everything. And until all the changes happen, I want government to not get all fucking weird, which is a hard thing to want because technology has been making government weird. It's technology that lets propaganda be extra effective lately. Because we have all this new media that makes everybody fucking crazy. But so I don't want a fucking crazy socialist president who's gonna try to overturn everything. I think most Democrats, and certainly most Republicans, don't want everything overturned. They just want shit to be kind of normal. And, all right.
And that's why Sanders is going to lose to Trump.
Well, Trump's not normal either.
Did you want to tell me why you hate Trump?
Let's do some other shit before we get to that.
Okay.
I noticed you were eating Baskin-Robbins ice cream before we started. And we each agreed that even though Baskin-Robbins is old school, it comes from, we ate there when we were kids in the 60s, in the fucking 60s. And it's survived, and we still find Baskin-Robbins to be a good
sculpture
product.
right behind you. It'll bend. The studio is full of melty things that you can bump with your elbow.
Malleable shit. Yeah.
Malleable, thank you.
Yeah. So Baskin-Robbins, when we were growing up, it was corporate policy that they had the coldest drinking fountain in town, which was great. On a hot summer day, you go in and you knew the drinking fountain was going to be just 1 degree above freezing. And great ice cream sandwiches. In the 80s, they had chocolate raspberry truffle, premium flavor, my favorite flavor ever. And they're still good.
So what happened was, I've been getting used to Cold Stone, which is like biting into heaven. And I was forced to go to a Baskin-Robbins. And I thought, how the hell did this old school, watery American ice cream company stay in business with places like Cold Stone and Ben & Jerry's? And I went in and I thought, by God, they've changed with the times. They have vegan, soy-based ice cream. They have low-calorie ice cream, and they both taste delicious. And it just goes to show you that if a company's willing to look ahead and say, look, we can still fulfill people's needs. So I was in there on a diet. I was still able to eat ice cream because Baskin-Robbins thought this through. And that's how they're managing to survive, because I can't go to Cold Stone when I'm on a diet. So congratulations, Baskin-Robbins.
And it's tough to survive as any kind of business.
Yeah.
Because the internet fucking kills everything.
As far as the internet goes, somebody said something very intelligent recently, and that is, actually, I'd rather have the Wild West of the internet than ABC, CBS, NBC, which is what we used to have. Because those guys could make us do anything they wanted.
Yeah, but they didn't want to make us do anything.
That's what you think.
No, the deal is that I've said this a million times, but TV news did not used to be profit driven. TV news used to be something that the networks had to do because the government said, we're going to give you the airwaves, we're going to give you these wavelengths, these radio frequencies over which to broadcast your signals. We're not going to charge you anything for them as long as you guys put some news on every day. And the networks are like, okay. And so news channels, nightly news used to be 15 minutes long. It was the very least they could do to report the news. And starting in the 70s and 80s, the networks started to realize they could make money off of various kinds of news, and then news channels arose. And now it's profit driven, and I've said it a million times that profit driven news is a fucking mess.
Well, I have to say I am more amazingly well informed than I've ever been in my life. I can look up with the internet, I can look up the actual government documents, I can look up every study. I can look up studies that aren't even about politics, just studies, and read them in a PDF from Harvard, so it's amazing how well informed I am and how well informed kids can be.
Yeah,
Well,
but
have you had this experience? I'll be talking with a Gen Z, a Z, or a millennial, and while I'm talking to them, I'll mention Fatty Arbuckle. And within seconds, they'll have Fatty Arbuckle on their phone, and they'll know more about him than I do.
I have that experience several times a week working for Jimmy Kimmel, who is very smart and very technologically adept. So I would pitch something, and immediately he'd know more than I did, and he'd be able to say, "Is that part of the joke? Because that's what you just said isn't accurate." I'm like, "No, that's not part of the joke." It was brutal. It was
Interesting.
but also, in a way, awesome. But also, we're each in our own bubble, because you and I, we spend the week on the internet, so many hours a day, and you're perfectly informed, but only about shit, largely about shit in the conservative bubble. When I say show me your sources are generally conservative. And when you tell me to show mine are generally liberal. So we can know a lot of shit, but the shit we know is, it's the blind guys and the elephant.
No, I have to say, because I'm used to that, I'm used to you saying, well, that's from a Republican. I try to have government documents. Just look, this is what the document says. This is, a court document. This is a state document. So, sorry, Rick, I think I've got the original sources a lot of the time.
No, generally, let's just I said I would do some research about the Clinton Foundation.
Okay.
And the donors, because I figure they're a big-ass charity. A lot of people donate to them, and when you try to make a case that they're being influenced by a certain set of donors, it's like, yeah, you're just cherry-picking among the thousands of donors. And I did 2 minutes of research, and then, because I'm lazy, I quit after I found out that among the donors to the Clinton Foundation are Donald Trump and Newsmax, which donated $1 million to the Clinton Foundation, which is crazy because Newsmax is a hyper-conservative fucking news source. I don't know why they donated $1 million, but they did. So a lot of people donated to the Clinton Foundation.
However, weirdly, the 9 board members of Uranium One donated 145.
I know you say that a lot, but
Don't interrupt me. 9 board members of Uranium One donated $145 million to the Clinton Foundation within months of the Uranium One getting control over 20% of our uranium mines.
you shouldn't bring it
So
up because then
that's
I
a
lean
very-
forward
that's
and
a
then
very
people see my thinning hair when I
That's
go
a
like that.
very strange coincidence. And the fact that some little old lady in Iowa contributed $50,000 is not relevant.
I wonder, I should know, I'll look it up at break, what their annual amount of contributions were.
Well, I would say that $145 million might have been a standout.
Yeah, no, let's not have this whole argument, but because you can I can say, what I'll always say is read up on Uranium One. 2, that the people who donated $145 million were no longer board members when they donated.
That's not true. That's actually not true at all. You're talking about one guy who left the board but went into business with the board members in something related to it. He was never actually separated. In fact, that one guy that you're thinking of went into business with Bill Clinton. They started a gold business.
All right, so let's move on.
His name was Ian Telfair.
Okay. What else?
No. His name was not the guy that you always talk about was the one that went to Kazakhstan with Bill Clinton, and in that way secured the Kazakhstan uranium mines.
All right.
And that guy, he's got an Italian surname.
All right, so don't worry about it. Let's move on.
Ian Telfair's.
Talk about Knott's Berry Farm. we're gonna do endorsements. We endorse Baskin-Robbins. They still have really cool drinking fountains.
All right, I'm going to tell you guys about Knott's Berry Farm, and here's the reason. Disneyland gets all the attention. Now you may say, why are Lance and Rick talking about Knott's Berry Farm? And I'll tell you why. Because Disneyland costs $1,000 for an annual pass, a typical annual pass, one of the nicer ones. Knott's Berry Farm costs $100. And Knott's Berry Farm is not 1/10 as good as Disneyland. It's a really great place, and it has wonderful, wonderful things. It doesn't have the strange, politically correct quality that Disneyland has. Now, it's true that Disneyland keeps getting better in some ways, but Knott's has continued to improve too. Knott's has got the same level of technology in some areas. They have dark rides with animatronics that rival the Disneyland Pirate Ride and Haunted Mansion, and they've got more extreme roller coasters. And I was there yesterday. They have a meal deal at Knott's for $135. You can eat at Knott's basically as much as you can fit in your body for a whole year. And
That's less than 40 cents a day if you went there every day.
Well, they've got, this deal is so, the reason I'm telling people this is that there are no deals anymore. There's no, if you live in LA, everything is overpriced. Everything is too expensive. And you never get away with anything. Knott's Berry Farm is, they've got music, live music, good music, rock music, country, salsa. They have, as I say, dark rides, roller coasters.
You mean you go into a dark room and shit happens?
Oh,
to you?
okay. People don't know what a dark ride is. A dark ride is the industry term, and anybody that likes theme parks, and I do. A dark ride is a ride where they used to be rides where you go into a building or you go into a series of warehouses and they have the lights down real low, because that way all the illusions are more effective. Like, you know, you can almost be convinced that the pirate is real because it's dark, okay? So they got the name dark rides. But lately, dark rides have gotten so good that they're not really dark. You know, they actually keep the lights on, or they have the animatronic. This is my version of Robot Girlfriends, is when you have pirates or cowboys outside at Knott's waving their hands at you, and they look pretty damn good, pretty real. So I just want to shout out to Knott's for being a great deal in a world where there are no great deals.
We should talk about that food deal. They have restaurants.
Okay, all right.
I guess you go.
Here's the deal. I swear to God, this is the weirdest thing. This is such an amazing deal that I don't know how they do it. Because what they're betting on, I guess, is that you're only going to go 4 or 5 times a year. But they've got homeless people that will buy this annual pass and the food thing for $235, and they can eat literally until they drop. So I was sick all day today because I ate so much that my stomach expanded and I could hardly move. Because I kept thinking, well, it's free. I'm Jewish. I'll keep eating. I don't care what happens to my body. And so they just kept shoveling food into plates, and I just kept devouring it. And it's good. They've actually, one thing about Knott's is they've made an effort to make the food good. So I mean, I would just like to say that it's wonderful to see that there are businesses that are still giving you unbelievable value.
Lance knows what the CEO of Knott's looks like. also knows when the guy is likely to be walking around.
All right, so don't say anything more about that. But here's the deal. I asked him. I said, look, how the hell can you afford to do this? And he just said, volume. Which is good for him and good for me. If he makes 1 penny off of every dollar in if he's doing this by making, buying huge amounts of food and making a small profit, good for him. That's the way it should be.
This is a business you could have, because you're a capitalist.
Oh wait, I just want to say this. If anybody's interested in a theme park section of our show, because I've noticed that theme park YouTube videos get millions of views. I can do that because I live in Southern California. We have the finest theme parks in the world here, rivaled only by Orlando and Tokyo. So amazing. I also go to Universal, which has also become a great deal. It's not as good as Knott's. It's pricier, but it's still a very good deal. All right, go ahead.
If you're coming to Southern California with your family or other group, and you want somebody to...
Yeah, I will go. I will go to a theme park with Adolf Hitler. Okay, not at any excuse. All right, go ahead.
And you should hire Lance to take. He knows the best shit to do, the best places to go, all the strategies. He's a fucking theme park savant.
You have to. Here's the thing. An innocent person at a theme park can be ruined. You have to really know what you're doing. There's a learning curve on theme parks. You should go to a seminar. There should be a seminar for anybody before they go to a theme park to learn the ropes.
Also, if you're part of the big swath, I'm pitching for you.
Well, no.
No, hold on, because this is important.
Right,
if you're part of the big, part of Trump land, if you're solidly conservative and behind Trump, and you're leery about coming to LA to go to these theme parks, or the LA area, to come to these theme parks because you're afraid you're going to run into a bunch of fucking, soy-based shoe-wearing lunatics who might vote for Bernie, who will infect your family with crazy liberal beliefs. Come to LA, come to Orange County, hire Lance. Lance will not only show you the best of these theme parks, but he will agree with your conservative values, and he will also, if you let him, he will offer a critique of liberalism from somebody in the middle of liberalism, because if you're from Trump land, you really don't know what's going on.
Let me give you an example. All right, so I wanted to tell 2 stories, okay? The first story is that I used to work at Disneyland. And the people would come up to me and they would say, what's so great about this place? I'd say, how long have you been here? How long have you been here today? They'd say 3 hours. And I say, what did you do? And they would say, well, we just walked around. I said, did you go on any rides? No. And then I would have to point them on which rides to go to. And I'd say, when you're done with that, come back to my station and I'll tell you what to do next. And I literally had to do that. And it kind of astounded me that you could have a theme park this big and successful and people didn't know what to do. They would just be wandering around aimlessly. So that's the first story. The second story is this. There's a difference in the theme parks, okay? Disneyland is left-wing and politically correct. They didn't used to be, but they are now. They actually, the heads of Disney actually met with Obama. I know that for sure. And Knott's Berry Farm is old-fashioned American. So to give you an example, there is a church on Knott's Berry Farm grounds. It's an old. Knott's Berry Farm is like a Western town, but it's an authentic Western town. It has a chapel you can get married in, and it has, during Christmas, they have a creche. That's a manger scene with the 3 wise men and Jesus inside Knott's Berry Farm. right in the middle of the park. You can see a creche, and they have a hangman's noose, and they have a brothel.
No, don't tell people to come to Knott's for the noose.
Well, there's a noose.
It's not a noose for.
It's for hanging horse thieves.
All right.
Now, the other thing they have, and by the way, it's how we establish law and order in the West.
All right.
The noose. Wait, and there's more. They used to, I think, I didn't see it last time I was there, but they used to have a quote unquote, like, place where girls would be. It was a house, but it was a brothel. It was a Western brothel at a theme park. And they didn't call it a brothel, but they would have...
Come for the noose, stay for the sex.
They would have mannequins inside, dressed up as like attractive Western ladies, and that was their cat house. Contrast that with Disneyland, who I've already said this before, but they actually have on Gay Day in Disneyland, they have a whole shop that sells nothing but gay paraphernalia.
Wait,
Rainbow Mickeys.
They don't sell that. They only sell that shit on Gay Day. You can't get rainbow.
Well, you can get it for about a week afterwards too.
Well,
but it's gay themed Disney products. They also took all the Disneyland had a Lincoln show where they had a robot Lincoln giving a speech, and I'm knowledgeable enough to have compared the 1955 speech with the 2020 speech. In the 2020 speech, they took all references to religion out of Lincoln's speech.
Okay, all right. So the deal is, you talked about how people come to Disneyland, they don't know what the hell to do.
Right.
And I know people in the technology realm who are working on that. You know what AR is? Augmented reality? All right. Well, basically, you have some kind of headset, either glasses or
Oh, yeah.
So, like, in the future, I don't know when it's going to happen, but you will go to an amusement park, or you'll go to, like, the downtown or say you'll go to Washington D.C. and you'll put on the glasses, or you'll go to a museum and they'll tell you you should know to
like Google Glass is.
Yeah,
was it Google
Glass, except it won't get you punched in the face. Yeah, it's coming.
Because Google Glass
were glasses that put information up on your lenses.
Yeah.
They also took video, which made you get punched because people didn't want just some guy taking video with his glasses.
Okay.
But until AR takes over, you should come hire Lance, especially if you're from a conservative part of the country.
Yeah, right. And I'll go to a theme park. I used to I had there was this woman I knew who was very who loved to turn down guys, and she was really she made a big deal about how I had gone to Knott's Berry Farm with her, and how I'd asked her again and she turned me down. And somebody finally said, "Oh, you're talking about Lance. He'll go to Knott's Berry Farm with anybody." And so she was crestfallen. She found out that I don't care who you are, I'll go to Knott's Berry Farm with you.
Yeah, you could be liberal and Lance will go with you.
You can have any deformity, no problem. All right, go ahead.
All right, so I guess we should start to argue the really arguing part of it. Last week.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Before we start, we were just having a little conversation about the year 2000.
Yeah, how it was so far in the future. And I was talking, like, because we're fucking old. And I remember being a kid and being amazed when we got to the year 1984, because that was the date in this famous book that was written in roughly 1948 about the future. And, you know, I couldn't even imagine I never tried to imagine what life was going to be like for me after the year 2000, because I was going to be 40. And it was like, that's just fucking old.
Yeah.
But you also had a related question, which is, what would we do more of if we got to be kids again? And I would get in more fights Because one reason the kids who are afraid of fights are afraid is because they haven't been in enough fights to know exactly what can happen in a fight. If you've been hit a few times and you've hit a few people, then you kind of know, unless you're up against some huge psycho kid, how it's going to go. And like, I could go back and when people gave me, I remember the times people gave me shit, and where I just backed down or I took it, and no, if I were 6 years old again, people would suffer my wrath, in a playground way.
Lance?
All right, well, I have noticed in that regard that a lot of youngish parents that are having kids now are immediately putting their kid into martial arts, which is something we didn't really do back then.
My dad he took me to karate, and it sucked ass. I sucked ass at it, and I lasted like one class.
Yeah, but the thing is that, as I've said before in this show, they've got jiu-jitsu now, which is really, what I like about it is that you don't get your eyes damaged, you don't get your nose broken, you don't get a concussion. You're just wrestling, basically, very advanced, dirty wrestling. And I think that's a good thing for kids, because, you don't want to take the kid and put him in something where his head's going to get beaten in by the time he's 17. So that's a good thing.
It used to be a good thing to get your head beaten. It toughened you up. Yeah, he got his bell rung, said the coach.
Most fights end up in the ground anyway within a couple of seconds.
Right. And, I mean, so there's that, and, but if it was me, if there was anything I would do differently, I would have, I think, drawn and painted more when I was a kid. Because I came to art kind of late, and those were valuable years that I could have been using practicing.
Yeah, I would have watched so much less shitty TV.
Yeah.
Because we watched so much Gilligan's Island. We knew it was shitty as we were watching.
Yeah.
We watched Lucille Ball came in 3 flavors. The Lucy Show, I Love Lucy, and Life with Lucy.
Yeah.
And if you weren't careful, you could spend at least 90 minutes a day just watching Lucy reruns, which were fine, but they were just, your life was just going away.
Yeah. A lot of time wasted. One other thing, by the way, I realized that I am still suffering today because we didn't go to a dentist regularly. Like, if I had to do all over again, I would brush my teeth more.
Yes.
Because I'm still losing teeth. I
Yeah,
have
me
bad
too, me
teeth.
too, me too.
And all from injuries that I got to my teeth when I was 12 and 13. You know what I mean?
I was a roller skating waiter in a restaurant for a year. And we got whatever soda we wanted. And I just,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that probably fucked up my teeth.
Oh, you know what I found out from my dentist? That soda, like Coke and Diet Pepsi, which I liked, is as bad as battery acid for your teeth. Yeah, so all those sodas I wouldn't have done.
Or at least I would have had a toothbrush in my back pocket, and I would be, and floss and the whole fucking bit. Also, I would have had a whole if I could go back knowing then what I know now, it would be tough, because I'd be a 59-year-old man in a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old kid's body. And so I wouldn't be hitting on if I were in 6th grade, I wouldn't be hitting on my classmates, because that would be just fucked up. But if I were in high school, I would have a whole new pitch. I'd be like, look, I'm pathetic now. I'm not, I'm not the guy on the football team who can't even comb his own hair because his arms are too jacked. But I'm going to make a pretty good living being funny professionally. And so, like, I'm not going to, you might as well give me a shot. I'm not kind of entertaining. And what would it cost you? You just make out with me once or twice. And then you go back to the fucking guy with the 17.5-inch arms.
A girl's gotta know how to take care of herself. You know, it's just as easy to fall in love with a rich man as it is with a poor man. That's what they
Yeah,
say.
you want to get out of fucking Boulder, you want to get out of Albuquerque and make it out to fucking L.A.
Yeah.
And, you know, where you can go to the Rite Aid and see a movie star. And,
You can still use that on women in the Ukrainian women. Yeah, you could still use that one. But anyway,
how would I like that. I'm a junior in high school, and I've got myself a mail order bride from the Ukraine, and she comes to school with me.
that's a sitcom. That's a sitcom right there. What do we call that?
I don't know. I think we give it
the Beverly Ukrainian.
No, we just give it. It's the name of the woman who came from the Ukraine. Svetlana.
Svetlana and the Jew. Svetlana and the Beeb. Svetlana
I don't know, just Svetlana.
Dexter and the.
Svetlana's junior year. I don't know.
This is a pitch right here.
No,
we're doing.
Ukraine influences. Ukraine influences
All right,
Lance.
Svetlana, she's 24. She made it through 1 year of med school before she ran out of money.
And she's a concert pianist.
Yeah, she's a chain smoker and.
And an 18-year-old kid.
No, a 16-year-old
Oh,
kid.
it's funnier that way. You're right.
Well, all of a sudden, the 16-year-old kid's grades go up, and it's because his Ukrainian girlfriend's doing all his homework.
It's just like it's mourning in the Svetlana household, like the little sister, the bratty little sister, the dog, the dad, the mom. You know, they all come down to breakfast, and Svetlana's been like up since 5 in the morning, and she's already gone through about 8 cigarettes, and she's cooked everybody like some fritash.
Vertage?
I don't know, some cracklock.
Fish or something.
Yeah, just
the liver
some-
of a fish.
Yeah.
You know, and
She's got the little brother taking Instagram pictures of her half naked.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, because it's an American sitcom and not a British sitcom, she never cheats on him. She never cheats on Billy. And Billy, even though he's 16 and she's constantly being hit on by millionaires and billionaires. And what happens is she's got this weird kind of old school loyalty. Like she's right on the verge of cheating on him, and Billy shows up with his skateboard and says, "Wait, just a minute." And somehow she wins her over.
She comes the closest to cheating on him
Uh-huh.
the week that Billy's a shitty name. You got to go with
Yeah.
Jaden or something modern.
Yeah, you're right. I'm
The
sorry.
week that Jaden has just the biggest fucking white-headedest pimple in the middle of his forehead. She's like, it causes an existential crisis with Svetlana. What am I doing with this?
What am I doing with this? He's just a child. I owe him no loyalty. And he's, but he wins her over because he's like an American. And just having innocence and sweetness that Americans are known for. It's like, what is wrong with him? I offered to do porn movie. I offered to sell drugs. I'm trying to bring, and he comes to me with this weird, you know, he believes in God.
He asks her to prom, you know, and like, you know, she's about to run off, you know, and he asks her to. He comes up with some really sweetly cheesy way to ask her, and she rolls her eyes and she stubs out her cigarette and her sausage, and she's like, "Yes, I go to prom with you."
Well,
Yeah,
'cause
and
he
wait.
just-
In every episode, there's a colorful Russian mafia guy that is like almost gonna kill Justin or Jaden, but somehow she saves him by being, you know, somehow she's got to play both sides. She's got to make sure the Russian mafia guy believes her, but at the same time she's loyal to Jaden and saves his life.
Also, she fixes the parents' relationship. Their marriage is a little rocky, and she's always offering good advice based on her own life, and it's always based on something appalling. That then they found his head floating down the river.
Right. We were starving. I was having to turn tricks every night. Now, if you want to know
I would
how
put
to
down
please
glue
a
traps
man,
for pigeons. We ate for us to eat.
no, and she gives the wife love advice. His mom, She gives the mom love advice, and in one episode, the mom, Jaden's mom, is like wearing a leather bikini and smoking cigarettes, and Justin's dad is really happy. Like, what's going on? And the weird thing is that Justin's dad is Jaden's dad is like Charlie Sheen, and he's not sleeping with he's not sleeping with Svetlana. He's like that's total boundaries. But he never makes a pass at her.
Are you thinking Charlie Sheen, or are you thinking Jim Belushi?
Well, okay, Jim Belushi's kind of on the nose. I'm saying Charlie Sheen is like the guy you would assume is going to go for Svetlana, but totally respectful of his son's relationship. And all right,
All right.
Well, it's just that every time like they think they have a problem, then she talks about what it was like back in this third world country and you know, and
They
it's
took
like
the
well,
bone out of his lower leg.
yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, we don't have it so bad after all, you know. And then consequently, like like the men back in Ukraine are macho and all they want to do is drink, and where you know Jaden is a kid and wants to go to Disneyland, he wants to do all this fun stuff that kids still want to do. So she's like fucking in heaven.
yeah.
Not only should we make the sitcom, we should also get mail order brides.
Yeah. And you know, they make beautiful.
Well, you know what? The whole
ones.
deal is the deal with a really good mail order bride sucks up all your money and never comes to America. They just stay in wherever and they just
Well,
take them. But like for some reason, like Svetlana's been doing this for 3 years now, and she's really jaded. And for some reason, like, and it's always because like most of the guys who are mostly do mail order brides are like dumb losery guys, like creepy guys. But like the innocence of Jaden, like it's like she's like, you know what? I go see this Jaden, and her boss is like, what's this? He goes, I go see. I give it a chance.
well, maybe we can get a mail ordered guest from this. I'm sure this show can be watched in the Ukraine. So if somebody wants to come on in, I'm sure. Lance, will you host a Ukrainian girl to come here for 6
I don't
months?
think that could lead to conflict, but I.
Okay, so let's move on.
All
What's
right.
our next
Last week I really let down my side because the last thing you yelled at me was to name one thing that Trump's done that's bad. And I'm like, that was the end of the show, and I was like, and so I did. Like,
Okay. Stop.